I don't believe in magical things, but I still believe in me. I no longer need the magic it seems, but I'm still in need of me. I'm growing in my understanding of all the things I need, and what it seems I need the most of is reciprocity. I need boundaries for my flowing, I need friction for my growth, I need my participation and my trust in how life goes. I need understanding. Help my understanding. I don't believe in magical things, but I still believe in me. I no longer need the magic it seems, but I'm still in need of me. I'm growing in my understanding of all the things I need, and what it seems I need the most of is reciprocity. I need boundaries for my flowing, I need friction for my growth, I need my participation and my trust in how life goes. I need understanding. Oh, I'm here for understanding. Ooh, life needs understanding. Help my understanding. Oh, I don't believe in magical things, but I still believe in me. I no longer need all the magic it seems, but I'm still in need of me. Oh, I'm growing in my understanding of all the things I need, and what it seems I need the most of is reciprocity. I don't believe in magical things, but I still believe in me. I no longer need the magic it seems, but I'm still in need of me.
Welcome in, everybody, for another beautiful Wednesday afternoon. I cannot lie, man. That is one of my favorite songs. Like, I've been listening to that one on repeat, like, for the past few days, man. It's on YouTube now. It's on Spotify. YouTube is where I've been listening to it the most because I can just put it on loop and get to work. But it's such a powerful song, man. Like, I don't believe in magical things, but I still believe in me. I no longer need the magic, it seems, but I'm still in need of me. And that's like, oof. Well, I mean, I wrote it, so I guess that's why I resonate with it so much. But like, yeah, that's my life, man. Like, I don't believe in magical things, but I do believe in me, and like, that's beautiful to me, and I don't need the magic. It's me. But I feel like that's what all the movies have been trying to tell us, at least the ones that I watched growing up. I watched a movie coming up. What's up, Kyle? I watched a movie coming up called, what was it, The Last Dragon? Was it The Last Dragon? I think it was The Last Dragon. With Bruce Leroy. Do y'all remember Bruce Leroy? And sure enough, who's the baddest? And this whole time, he's looking for the magic, and he's looking for who's the one and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's all in him. That was like Kung Fu. What was it? Kung Fu Panda 1 or 2. That was the whole thrive of that movie. This dude spends his whole life looking for the secret ingredient, the secret sauce to kung fu, and all of that. And at the end, he gets the scroll, and the scroll is just a mirror. I no longer need the magical things. I no longer believe in magical things, but I still believe in me. And for me, that seems to be where the actual magic is. Uh, So again, welcome in on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Please, as you're coming in, make sure to like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I am the dragon, right? Who's the baddest? Show enough. When Busta Rhymes came out, I thought he was show enough. I did, but that was just because in one of his videos he actually he had impersonated show enough. So I was like, dang, that's the same guy. But no. Anyway, let me see. What do we got going on? Before we jump into today's conversation? Today, we're going to be talking about the myth of learning styles. And I think this is going to be a good one because the undercurrent of today's conversation is basically how bias masquerades as science. Feel the rhythm of the night. How bias masquerades as science. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I want to invite y'all into something that I'm kind of working on. And I've been working on this for 2 years now. And I think I'm this close to being ready to pushing the go button on this. And that's mainly because Bridge City is finally starting to stabilize. It's finally starting to organize. It's in a place where it's getting closer to being able to take care of itself, which feels so good, man. Bridge City's growing up. I'm a proud papa. But there are bigger goals. There are bigger goals. And so one of those bigger goals, and I'm going to share my screen for a moment. And I like being down here. All right, I'm gonna share my screen right here for a moment. One of the things that we've been working on is, and again, I've been working on this for 2 years, y'all. 2 years I've been working on this, planning this out, and it's a framework for humanist practice. Like we already have humanist celebrants out there who do great work, but they're often on their own. And then when it comes to things like coaching or consulting or community development, there's just a huge disconnect. And that's primarily because a lot of the institutions that have gotten into this idea of humanism and humanist services, or humanist practice, because that's what like celebrancy is humanist practice. Those who have gotten into humanist practice typically don't come from either rigorous academic disciplines or rigorous religious disciplines to know enough about the frameworks and how those things come together. I just so happen to represent both of those worlds. And so we're building the future of humanist practice through Bridge City. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to show it to y'all. And so we're going to be working on training people to be celebrants, coaches, consultants, and community developers. We're going to be working on helping people build communities, local communities, helping people lead local communities, helping people offer and provide humanist services, helping people partner with their wedding venues, funeral venues, and all of those things. But it's really to take humanism from being just a personal value and building a framework that can translate this into a professional framework, which takes humanism from being just an idea and making it applied. This is what I call applied humanism. And I don't even know if I said that at all, but this is one of the projects coming down the pike, Bridge City's Council for Applied Humanism, where the people that are credentialed through Bridge City's Council will be working in across 8 disciplines as far as being in order to be credentialed with us. And that's sociology, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, religion and theology, communication, narrative theory, homiletics, and hermeneutics. And so, I'm kind of getting passionate talking about it. So I want to pull back a little bit because I don't want to spend my whole time on it. But I'm excited about this, y'all. Like, this is something that I'm really, really excited about. And I think it has a strong potential to really help build the future. Um, because like right now, there are a lot of people who are passionate about wanting to make the world a better place, and they do not have a venue to do that through. They do not have a system that welcomes them in. And see, that's man, like that's the thing. And that's the thing. What I miss about church, from being a young person to being a elder statesman in it, that's what I miss about church, is that if you were young and you wanted to positively impact the world, church was a place that you went. You know what I'm saying? And there was going to be a community there who was going to be happy that you wanted to help. And then there were systems and structures in place to make sure that you could get the support to become the best help that you could be within that confined theology. I think that's the next level of humanism. All of the events I've attended throughout the past 2 years, that's one of the gaps that I keep running into, is that people say, I want to do more, but the training doesn't exist. And it's not even just training. The training is important. Yes, the training is important. The framework is important, but also the support, also the encouragement, also the opportunity. Don't just give me don't exactly continued education. And Kyle, that is actually so key. That is so key. Like, so for the way that we've been looking at this is that when people are certified through Bridge City or credentialed through Bridge City, they will have to recertify, almost like real estate license, like real estate professionals, like healthcare professionals. No, we need to make sure that you are continuing your education and supporting you in that, creating opportunities for you to learn more. CPR, yes, because you got to be up to date. And I realize there's a lot of outdated information out here, you know? All right. So, you know, so that's one of the things we're working on. I'm really excited about it. I don't know how any of this is going to go. One of the things that I set myself free from when I deconverted is the need to be a prophet or a psychic. I no longer need to be, I no longer need to be a prophet. I no longer need to be a psychic, and I no longer need to be perfect. And so what I do, and I think this is, one of the secrets to my success, is I try things. That's it. Hey, my name is Darante, and I try things. And I have no expectation for them to work beyond their capacity to work. We try things around here. I'm not a prophet, so I'm not going to say beyond a shadow of a doubt, I see this in the future. I'm not a psychic. I'm not clairvoyant, and I am not perfect. But boy, I think this one is a good one. I don't need the magic. That's it. That's it. All right, so let's jump into today's conversation. I hope y'all are excited about that as I am. I'm super excited about it. I think it's something that's needed, but it's going to need a lot of support, because things do. And go check out the reciprocity series from Sunday Sessions to understand why support is important, because I think the reciprocity series was probably one of the best from this year. Ooh, it got good. All right. So the myth of learning styles. I should have included a poll in this one, y'all. And of course, as y'all are coming in, let us know where you're watching from. I love to know where people are at when they're watching this. Okay, so let's jump into this. The myth of learning styles. How many of you have heard about learning styles? When did you hear about learning styles? What do you think is your learning style? When I was coming up, learning styles had become a big conversation. Some people learn some. They were saying some people are kinesthetic learners, some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners. And so this information came out, and it was very fascinating, because on one sense it kind of felt freeing, like, oh, this is why I'm not learning. You're teaching it the wrong way. And it's like, yes. All right, so it sounded very good. Like, yeah, you talking too much and I need to see, or you're writing too much and I need to do, type of thing. And so I started going on this rabbit trail recently to kind of get into this, because okay, let me just go here. Learning styles and love languages, which y'all have heard me talk about love languages before. Learning styles and love languages reveal how easily bias can masquerade as science when an idea feels intuitive. You know, when an idea feels intuitive, or flatters personal experience and spreads through trusted institutions before it has been validated, this can be problematic. And this is ultimately why we're having this conversation on learning styles, because as with love languages, this was something that came up that was very popular, felt intuitive, definitely flattered personal experiences, and it spread through trusted institutions. But the problem is, none of this was actually ever validated. Now the issue is not merely that learning styles are wrong. The issue that I'm pointing out here is that they were allowed to become diagnostic language without a reliable diagnostic basis. Now, first, let's think about the implications of that. Let's sit in the implications of that, because I didn't learn about learning styles in church. I didn't learn about learning styles in religious institutions. I learned about learning styles in high school, middle school, high school, and in college. I had college professors when I was going, because I was originally going to college to be an educator, to be a secondary educator on the high school levels. Substituted for a while and decided I do not have the temperament to be substituting, to be teaching high school kids. Not for me, especially not at that time. Um, but you had entire institutions, entire funded institutions, entire institutions that are qualified to do these type of things, board of educations making decisions based on learning styles, using learning styles as diagnostic language for students without there ever being a reliable diagnostic basis. So when y'all hear me like kind of throw shade or throw shots at the public education system, this is one of the many reasons why. How does so much misinformation, how is it able to get filtered through our public education systems? Now, the how is actually easy. The how is we're not perfect. The how is we're not omniscient. And that's the reason why we put ourselves through processes to validate our intuitions. And when we forsake using those processes, using those methodologies to validate our intuitions, we become vulnerable to misinformation. You know, you know what I'm saying? So the problem with learning styles is not just that the science is weak. The problem is that the language became acceptable before the science was even established. People were labeled visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, hands-on learners, abstract learners, slow learners, relational learners, and very few people stopped to ask who decided that. Based on what evidence? Using what validated method did we come to these conclusions, and what biases might be smuggled in to that judgment? That's the type of nuance that if our species is to ever learn from the mistakes of our past, that's going to be a muscle that we're going to have to develop. That muscle to like, no, I trust, but I still need to validate. Man, no, this sounds so good. Man, this feels right. I kind of feel like this might explain so much about why my students are struggling. But even though I trust that this information might be accurate, even though that I feel that this information might be accurate, before we promote it as valid, let's actually validate it. And like, and at this moment, this is bigger than just learning styles or love languages or things becoming popular that are not actually helpful. This is bigger than that. This is more so about like, that is a macrocosm of what's happening on a micro level with individuals every day. How many decisions are you calling valid before they've actually been validated? How many of your intuitions are you calling valid before they've actually been validated? What's up, Natalie? Like, no. Like, any information that comes to me, I don't care how good I feel about it, still has to be validated. Oh, but Darante, I thought you're just going to take my word for it. Oh, no. No, no, no. I'm trying to break that habit. Mm-mm. I don't need anybody to be a person of their word. I don't, I don't need your words. I need the validation. I need the validation. Don't tell, because this is how we keep ourselves vulnerable. The best way I can say it, the most polite way I can say it, to bullshit. Every piece of bullshit you've ever believed, you believed because you did not validate the information. This is why one of the reasons why I say no, I refuse to borrow somebody else's certainty. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I can't do that. That's right. Trust, but verify about anything. You come tell me something about somebody else. I will believe you had an experience. I will not necessarily immediately believe what you're saying about the other person. That's not no, that information still has to be validated. I don't know it. You may know it, but I can't borrow knowledge from you. Ooh, that's so good. I can't borrow knowledge from you. Knowledge has to be earned. Knowledge has to be earned. And I don't even want to say we've been on a slippery slope downhill. I think we've been downhill for so long. Like we've been rising up. We've been coming up, as they used to say in the old Baptist church, on the rough side of the mountain. That's humanity right there for you. But as we've been coming up, it's like it's time for us to start learning these lessons. And like, okay, no. As I've started saying in a few of our Sunday sessions, one of the most beautiful thing about humanity's progress, one of the most beautiful things about our social evolution, our evolution as a social species, our evolution as society, is that we've given ourselves the gift of time. That's what we've done for ourselves. We've given ourselves the gift of time. You may not feel like it all the time, but we've given ourselves the gift of time. We are not running for our lives anymore. We've given ourselves the gift of time. But now we feel that time with so much unproductive stuff. We feel that time with so much like junk food. We feel that time with so much brain rot. We feel that time with so much stuff that is not edifying, that is not uplifting, that is not encouraging, that is not motivating, that is not empowering, that is not anything to move you forward. It's not people centric, it's not life affirming, you know? And so then when you need encouragement, you can't find it because you haven't filled yourself up with it. I didn't mean to go there, but the big point is we've given ourselves the gift of time. And I think what we need to do with the time is use it wisely. No, I have the time to think about it, so I'm going to think about it. I now have the time to validate the information, so I'm going to validate the information. No, there absolutely was a time where if you heard something in the bush, you did not have time to validate it. You need to get your ass out there as soon as possible. That could be a cheetah. And the fact that it could be a cheetah was enough to get the fuck up out of Dodge. You know what I'm saying? There was a time that was an absolutely acceptable way because we didn't have the time we have now. We didn't have the security we have now. And I'm not saying this is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm saying that we have more time to actually stop and think about what's happening. Man, I try, Natalie. I try. What's up, Dark Light? So, so again, my problem here is not that the science behind learning styles is weak. The problem is that the language became acceptable before the science was established. People were labeled before we asked the question like, how did we get to these labels? So, learning styles became a socially acceptable way to classify people without proving that those classifications were real. See, it don't sound so harmless now when you start thinking about it that way, does it? See, if learning styles are not based in science, then determining someone's learning style collapses into intuition, observation, self-report, or institutional assumption, and each of those is biased and is basically like the foundation of prejudice. We deal with a lot of the isms in this world, and a lot of the racist, misogynist, and all of those other things. But we don't often get down to the basis of bias and prejudice. And the basis is unearned knowledge. It's allowing yourself to think you know something about people you've never met, regardless of what it is. If you're a racist, it's allowing yourself to think you know enough about Black people to determine their worth, and you don't know them. It's your bias, your prejudice. If you're a misogynist, it's think you know enough about women to determine where all women should sit on the totem pole. So that's information you have no way of actually having access to. You know, so learning styles were primarily popularized by the New Zealand educator Neil Fleming. He introduced the VARK model, and that's the one most people are familiar with: visual, auditory, read, write, or kinesthetic. And he introduced this in 1987. Now, alongside Fleming, researchers like David Cobb and Howard Gardner also significantly accelerated the spread of learning style typologies during the 1980s and the 1990s. I'm going somewhere with this. Now, while these concepts were widely adopted in popular culture and education, major psychological and cognitive research, such as studies published by the American Psychological Association and the Yale Purview Center for Teaching and Learning, have since debunked the idea that matching instruction to a preferred learning style improves learning outcomes. Okay, so this idea of learning styles came in the 80s, really spread in the 1990s, but ends up getting debunked, in the early 2000s. Ends up getting debunked. So the phrase learning styles grew through many competing models. And I might want to rest my case here a little bit. I think I might sit in this one a little bit, because it didn't come through science. And that's where the subtitle here: how bias masquerades as science. Learning styles did not become popular through science. By the early 2000s, there were already many different taxonomies claiming to classify learners. The major 2004 Cofield review examined influential models in post-16 education and warned that the choice of instrument mattered greatly, with serious implications for teaching and learning. Now, that matters because when a field has dozens of competing style models, that's already a warning. That's already a warning sign. That's all. Like, why do we have so many competing models? It's almost like when a book comes in several different versions. It's a warning sign. It's a warning sign. So the public hears science says everyone has a learning style, but underneath that slogan is a messy marketplace of models, surveys, categories, and claims that, again, have not been validated. Neil's VARK model became especially popular in the 90s because it was easy to understand. But simplicity is not the same thing as validity. Oh, I got to say that again. Simplicity is not the same thing as validity. Just because you've made something simple, just because you've simplified a thing, does not mean that you've validated a thing. Damn it, I got to say it that way too. Just because you have simplified a thing does not mean you have validated a thing. And this is something that people often use, the 1890s. This is something that people often use in apologetics, in what the Nation of Islam call tricknology, to try to shut people down. They oversimplify something that is complicated, but simplifying complexity doesn't validate your claim. I like that. I said it enough times. So a later analysis noted that learning styles research remained widely endorsed in higher education literature, despite being treated by cognitive science as a neuromyth. Let me run that back. A later analysis noted that learning styles research remained widely endorsed in higher education literature. This is why I tell you cannot trust everybody with the degree. My favorite words from any first lady in American presidential history, my favorite words, my favorite quote comes from Michelle Obama, year one of Barack being president. And this is their first time being up there with the hoity-toity folk, kind of like that. That's kind of the way it came off to me. But she said, they're not that smart. And I think that's one of the things we got to realize. A part of the reasons the world is in the condition it is because you keep assuming that the people who are running it are smart enough to do so. bruh, like, nah, y'all, no. You keep assuming that the people who created the problem are qualified to fix the problem. That's a bad assumption, if I've ever seen one. So no, listen, this unvalidated, untested idea was being endorsed in higher education literature despite being treated by cognitive science as a neuromyth. One review found that 89% of recent papers in ERIC and PubMed searches implicitly or directly endorse learning styles, creating a misleading appearance of scientific support. Now, maybe this gives you a little insight into why I am somewhat effective in countering religious claims. Because a part of my deconstruction process was not just deconstructing religion, it was deconstructing bullshit. Y'all ain't ready for me today. I'm pretty. No, it's not just deconstructing religion. It's deconstruction how I come to my conclusions. It's deconstructing how do I challenge my assumptions? It's deconstructing how do I move in the world? Why do I think what I think? Why do I believe what I believe? And then beginning to realize, like, because you trust too much. See, I don't have that. I don't have those trust issues anymore, y'all. So no, I'm now aware of the world that I live in. And so it's very easy for people to say the science says and have no proximity to the science. It's so easy for anybody to say the experts say, and I don't know if the experts who say are experts in what they're saying. See, those are the variables. Those are the things that need to be validated, the things that need to be verified. So learning styles didn't become common because the evidence was overwhelming. They became common because the language was portable. It moved easily from teacher training to professional development to student orientation to workplace training to parenting advice to self-help culture. Despite the popularity of learning styles, there is no evidence to support the idea that matching activities to one's learning styles improves learning. In 2009, Psychological Science and the Public Interest commissioned cognitive cognitive psychologists Harold Pusher, Mark Daniel, Doug Rohr, and Robert Bjork to evaluate the research on learning styles to determine whether there is credible evidence to support using learning styles instruction. Their conclusion was, although the literature on learning styles is enormous, they found virtually no evidence supporting the idea that instruction is best provided in a format that matches the preference of the learner. Okay? So again, the issue is not just we don't know which style a person has. It's even worse. The categories themselves are unstable across models. The tests do not reliably establish a learning mechanism. Self-report often captures preferences, not effectiveness. Someone can say, I prefer to learn this way. That does not mean you doing so is effective for you. You measure that by saying, okay, then we're gonna deliver your instruction this way, and then we're gonna test you after you've done that instruction to see if you learned more, if you attained information at a better rate than you would have attained if the information would have been delivered differently. And then even teacher observation can reflect bias. So learning styles are not just unsupported as teaching strategy, they're also unreliable as a human classification. You know, that's all it is. So learning styles became popular partly because they feel intuitive, they feel humane, they seem to honor difference, they seem to say every student matters, which is emotionally appealing, especially in education systems that that have ignored students who are poor, black, neurodivergent, disabled, multilingual, or culturally marginalized. But the problem is that bad science can still sound compassionate. A teacher can sincerely believe they're honoring a student while actually reducing that student to a box. One of the reasons learning styles survive so long is because they gave educators a moral language. They made teachers feel adaptive, progressive, and student centered without having to actually do the work to become so. But the question is not whether the ideal feels inclusive. The question is whether it actually helps people learn. Representation is not the same as evidence. Personalization is not the same as science, and preference is not the same as pedagogy. Learning learning styles also create a false aura of neutrality. A teacher, trainer, counselor, or parent can say, "I'm not stereotyping you, I'm just recognizing your learning style." But if the underlying category is not scientifically valid, then the label is simply a bias with academic vocabulary. And that's really the tricky part, right? Because how much diagnostic language have we, how much diagnostic language have we absorbed and started using in our vocabulary without actually validating it? You know, like this is something that began to bother me years back. When a new word enters our kind of social lexicon, when a new word enters our social lexicon, um, we begin using it. I call it the hallelujah effect. Because you can have someone who never went to church before, never been to a black Pentecostal type of church. In black churches, we say hallelujah and we say amen. Now, neither one of these words are English words. They are not English words. And in most churches, most churches don't know what these words mean, right? And so there's not a lot of time going into explaining it. Amen is an easy one. Hallelujah is a little tougher. But you come into that church, you've never had that experience before, you visit a few times. Eventually, you hear other people saying hallelujah every now and then. So you throw out a hallelujah. Now, you have no clue what this word means. You've only seen it used and you've seen the context in which it is used. So you've now adapted a new word into your lexicon that you don't actually know what it means. You just know when to use it. Ooh, this is good. This is good. This is what happens when science, when bias masquerades as science. You get that hallelujah effect. So now you know the word narcissist, and you don't actually know what it means, but you know when to use it. Now let's take it further. So now you have these words. You don't know what they mean. If somebody literally sits you down and says, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "What? Huh? Well, you know what I mean. Everybody know what I mean." No. I'm asking you, what do you mean? This is the slippery slope, if you will, that we create for ourselves when bias masquerades as science, because we'll think we're practicing science when we're actually practicing bias. Mm. Yes, that's real life, Kyle. Y'all are so silly. So it's bias. And see, this stuff matters, especially when the learner is already socially vulnerable. A black boy who's restless gets called kinesthetic. They're just a kinesthetic learner. And remember what I said earlier? Simplicity is not the same thing as validity. You've now simplified a problem. Oh, now I get why he's always moving around in class. It's just that he's a kinesthetic learner. Whew. Now I don't have to think about, is there anything going on at home? Now I don't have to think about if there's anything neurologically different. Nope, he's just a kinesthetic learner. These are shortcuts. These are cheat codes. Learning styles can turn structural, developmental, cultural, and instructional problems into personality categories. Learning styles can become a form of confirmation bias. A student says, I'm a visual learner, then they remember every time a diagram helped them, but forget every time reading or a discussion or a repetition or practice helped them. A teacher says someone's kinesthetic, and so the teacher starts interpreting restlessness, boredom, or disengagement as a learning style instead of asking other questions. Is the material unclear? Is the student under-challenged? Is the student behind? Is the classroom unsafe? Is there attention issues? Is the student hungry, tired, anxious, embarrassed, or socially checked out? And here's the most important one: does the teaching suck? So the label can actually, and this is my issue with many labels, the labels can stop inquiry while pretending to explain. Once a label gives us emotional relief, we often stop asking whether it gives us explanatory power. This is one of the reasons why, like, I do my best, even when I'm angry with people, not to label them or not to address people by the labels that I know they're attached to, or not to, yeah, I don't, number one, I don't have a need for it. I personally don't have a need for it. I'm not saying that you're not going to do it. I'm not saying you don't have a need. I don't, you know, I don't have a need for it. And so I try to go out of my way. Now, I'd rather tell you why I don't like the person than just give the person a label. So I'll say, no, I don't deal with this person anymore because there was this type of behavior. And that type of behavior, I'm not really comfortable being around. But I'm not going to say, I don't deal with this person because they're a racist. That's me. I'm not saying you can't. But see, the reason I don't do that is because I've noticed that many times people use that as as thought stoppers. The moment you've labeled someone, that's the end of the conversation. That person's a racist. That person's a transphobe. That person's a misogynist. That person's MAGA. That person's liberal. That person's a left lunatic. You get all of these labels that have nothing to do with the point in many cases, and often serve to stop the conversation. You know? Oh man. Oh man. Y'all are awesome. Once a label gives us emotional relief, we often stop asking whether it gives us explanatory power. Like, what does this explain? What does this reveal? What do I now better understand? What can this now help me do? How can this now help other people? And then the real problem becomes once we're comfortable with labels, we're vulnerable to them. Then people know how to grab our attention. Then people know how to shift our emotions. Then people know how to guide our loyalty. Yeah, I know. Now I know exactly what to say if I want you to stop supporting one person. I just attach a label. And that is taking advantage of the fact that as a social species, we are highly responsive to that type of social dissonance. It's taking advantage of us. We're taking advantage of ourselves. And just to give you a clue, let's all get honest real quick. Let's just get really, really, really honest. Think about a time you wanted to use a label to end a conversation. Think about a time you wanted to pull a label to just be like, listen, I don't even know why we're talking about this. That guy's a racist. I was tempted to do that earlier today. I had to respond to an email that was asking me about something, and I wanted to put in the email, these people are racist, blah 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 blah. But I literally, like I said, I can't tell everybody's story, but I can tell mine. My story, I tried my best not to make that move. It's just low-hanging fruit. It's low-hanging fruit, and it's too close to dehumanization for me. Now, again, I ain't telling nobody else what to do. I am nobody's source of truth. I am only a point of reference, as such as we are all. Just a point of reference for other people to look at and learn from. You know? So I think this overlooks a major bias issue. If learning styles are not actually based in science, then how do we reliably determine what someone's learning style is beyond intuition? But I want you to bring that question closer to home, not even just about learning styles, just anything you know or anything you think you know. And I want you to make it personal. Make it about the opinions you have about people in your life, either socially or parasocially. Because we are definitely seeing an increase of parasocial relationships. And I don't know if we're doing the work to know how to navigate those weeds healthily, safely. But think about that. How do I reliably determine what I put my trust in? How do I reliably determine what I attach to as this is true, or this is factual, or this is representative? How do I reliably determine that? Am I still appealing to the shortcut of intuition? Am I still appealing to the shortcut of someone else said? Am I still appealing to the shortcut of emotional experience? Or am I allowing myself to sit with the discomfort of saying, hey, I feel like that could be accurate, but before I make that jump, let me do the work to validate. And watch this. There's another step in that. And if I'm not interested in doing the work to validate it, then maybe I'm not that interested in having this opinion either. Because that's what I found out about myself. I was like, no, if I'm not that interested, then I'm actually probably not that interested in this at all. So why do I have an opinion on it? I don't even care. You see how that works? Okay. So now I mentioned love languages at the beginning of this. So I want to bring that back in because I want to kind of hit a few neural myths so that we get that this isn't just one thing. We see this happen over and over again. And it's not just individuals, entire institutions can be susceptible to misinformation when we skip the validation arena. But what we should kind of understand now is that it is all of our responsibility to verify. It is all of our responsibility to validate. There is no human that good that we've seen where we can just say, all right, we can just trust them with everything from now on. We've not seen that world. That world hasn't existed yet. So right now, based off of everything we know, everything we can possibly verify that needs to be verified, we need to be trying to verify it. If I'm going to believe it, if I'm going to attach it to my life, if I'm going to walk in it, I probably need to try to verify it, not Jesus. So love languages are a perfect parallel because they're another example of a framework being treated like science without first having to survive the scientific process. And love languages, when they first came out, even when I was a Christian, my bullshit detector was kind of going off because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, no, the love language should be the language we both speak because that's how language works. Like this is how you create. Do you know what the number one reason people get marriage counseling for? The number one reason people get marriage counseling? Communication problems. Love languages, the 5 love languages, gave people a way to legitimately avoid communication. You know what I'm saying? Oof. Like, nah. So if the number one problem in relationships is communication problems, and you go write a book and say, nah, maybe that's just not your love language. You don't want to talk. You you just want to give gifts, or you just want to have acts of service done. And I was like, what in the world? So my radar was going off quite early. The framework was popularized by Gary Chapman, who was a Baptist pastor and marriage counselor. Those things shouldn't mix. It was in his 1992 book, The Five Love Languages, which I read. I need to make sure I put that. I keep a list of all the books that I've read, or at least all the books that I remembered that I've read. I'm trying to keep that list together, but I don't think I've put Five Love Languages on there. But because I think I read that around the same time that I read the other boy's book, which I think he's come out of Christianity now. But Josh something, he wrote "I Kissed Dating Goodbye," and then somebody else wrote another book right after that that I read called "I Gave Dating a Chance." So hilarious, but yes, oh yes, and that matters because love languages did not, just like the learning styles, didn't end the conversation through relationship science. They entered the machinery of Christian publishing, marriage ministry, pastoral counseling, self help culture, church small groups, premarital counseling, marriage retreats, radio interviews, personality quizzes, and eventually social media. That's the engine. That's the engine that the disassociated church has in its advantage. And I say the disassociated church for a very reason, for a very good reason. Churches are like a lot of secular people really seem to think churches are like operating under the Pope. And I'm like, bruh, why are you still living in the 1400s? That hasn't been the reality for Christianity for a very long time. As a matter of fact, it was never truly representative of Christianity because Christianity has never really had one pope since popes existed. Like right now, there's like 3 or 4 of them motherfuckers. Like there's a lot of popes. You just remember the white one. Okay, so back to regularly scheduled programming. So, but the disassociated church are the churches that these are Pentecostal churches, they're evangelical churches, they're Baptist churches, they're Methodist churches, they're Catholic churches, they're Lutheran churches. They have nothing to do with each other during the week. They do not go to conferences and stuff like that with each other. They are not very ecumenical, but they all use the same engines or similar engines. They buy some of the same books, use the same bookstores, Lifeway Christian Store. Okay. And I think there's the other one, Family. These are the engines that drive Christianity from a propaganda standpoint. Sunday ain't doing that work. There's not enough Sundays in a year to do that work. It's the businesses, the communities, the small groups, and the engines that then push publication, courses, products, and services through the disassociated churches. And that's just, I don't know if that information does anything for you or not, but there's some insight for you. And that's just because as a former pastor, I actually get very offended when the secular community misrepresents the church. Because like creating a caricature that doesn't exist that for you to fight is not the same thing as fighting real harm. Like creating like if you've never worked in the church, and I'm just going to be really honest, you're not going to like me. You might tune out right here. But if you've never worked in a church, you don't really qualify to talk about how they're organized because you don't know. There's a proximity gap. Everything that you're going to be operating on is going to be based off of hearsay, bias, and that distance between you and the thing that you're talking about. This is one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of critiquing of Islam. People pop up in my comments all the time. Well, you just talk about Christianity. You just talk about Christianity. Why don't you talk about Islam? Because I was never a fucking Muslim. And unlike other people, I don't talk about things that I'm not qualified to talk in. Why is Darante always talking about things from a sociological perspective? Because Darante is a sociologist. Why doesn't Darante deal with the evolutionary biologist aspect? Because Darante is not an evolutionary biologist. I have no interest in evolutionary biology. I got no interest in biology. It took me forever to realize that people eat for a biological reason. I thought we just ate because food tastes good. You understand? So my critique hits because it's accurate. My critique hits because I can sit in nuance. I don't have to create a caricature of what the church is not to talk about what it is. I don't have to depend on gossip rags to talk about what the church has done. I was there. You only visited the darkness. I was molded by it, groomed in it, prepared for it. You know, whole different world. That's my own version of banging. All right, let's get back. So, and engines are important, y'all. You got to understand these engines. If you don't understand these engines, you'll be fighting the wrong things. You'll be fighting the wrong things. And there's a lot of things that we fought, and it's just like, man. And so, for example, when they're trying to do the Bibles in the schools, do y'all ever really know what that's about? They do it like every 3 to 5 years. And every time they do it, we pretend like this is the first time they've done it. And I'm not about to be playing with y'all selective amnesia. Because at that moment, you're not being serious. You're just reacting to something that's news today. And then when it's no longer news, you'll be done reacting to it because you really don't give a damn. It's like that time that the gorilla died and everybody was like, Harambe. And then Michael Che, the comedian, came out and said, fuck y'all. Y'all don't give a damn about those damn gorillas. You don't care. And everybody like, yes, we do. And then he said, name one other gorilla. And the crowd gets silent because we're just reacting. But those things have absolutely nothing to do. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't do it if it got through. And of course they do it. But it's not actually about getting the Bibles in the school. It's not actually about getting kids to read the Bible or getting the teachers to read the Bible. That would be a cherry on top for them. What it's actually about is getting more money spent on Bibles, which then powers their engines more. So whether it gets passed or not is completely irrelevant. The Bibles are going to get sold anyway. You know what I'm saying? The Bibles are going to get sold anyway. Which means some Christian organization is about to get one hell of a payoff. And we'll be too busy fighting the caricature that's been created in the media instead of paying attention to where the money's going. You know, I'm just saying. I know. Yeah, I'm just saying. So a framework doesn't become science because it's printed in a book. It doesn't become science because it's taught in a church or recommended by a counselor. And it doesn't become science even if other scientists say, I think this is a good idea. We have to become, show me, validate. This is when I started. I can't say started. I lost my trust in many political people a long time ago. But a few years ago, and I share this story frequently because I want to remind people that this is a real issue. There was someone running for Congress, and I had an opportunity to kind of have a conversation, moderated conversation with him on a stage, because of course at the time I was a Black nationalist. And so it's the Black nationalist versus the person running for Congress, you know. And my conversation with them was they had this plan that they just said, this is what Black Americans need. And I said, I'm really, you know, my thing was like, I'm tired of everybody telling us what we need without showing me how you know that. And without showing me how you know. So she had this plan. This is what will work for us. And so I just asked one simple question. Where has this worked at? Where, in what other situation has this worked where there was a racial dynamic? What you mean? No. You said you know for a fact that this will work. You know that this is the best plan. How have you validated that knowledge? Where have you seen this work at? Hmm. She couldn't answer the question. So then it becomes, where are you getting your confidence? Like, because you're literally running for a political office. You're raising funds on this plan that you never even had to validate. And in the climate of today's politics, it's not even a requirement anymore. Your media isn't even holding people accountable. Okay, I'm gonna get out of politics because I'm gonna get mad. I'm gonna get mad. Who? It's like, yes. How do you know that? Hmm. Okay. So a lot of the stuff that we have today is popularity by distribution. So things become popular because they're able to be distributed faster. And then the moment it becomes popular, it's true. This is the game that the current president of the United States is running on everybody. If I say it and enough people reshare it, it's true. This is why I caution the secular community. Why are you sharing everything that this man says? If the goal is to stop the spread of misinformation, why would you be participating in the spread of misinformation while decrying the spread of misinformation? It's because you're responding from that carnal, primal self that has been caught in that bias loop and not stopping to pause. Am I helping or am I just participating? Because there is a difference. My participation could be frustrating the situation further. I could be helping to spread the disease. I could be helping spread the corruption. This was never so clear to me that the secular community had kind of lost. I don't even know if it ever had its founding. When I saw like several people reposting Donald Trump's vile photo of Barack and Michelle on the bodies of apes. And you got several people in the secular community sharing that picture. And I just sat there and I looked and I said, what if that was me and my wife? Do you think that's what I'd want the people who claim to be supportive of me to do? Is to say, hey, there's this bad guy spreading pictures, spreading vile, hateful pictures about you. I'm going to spread them some more. We're not thinking, we're reacting. We're a part of the toxicity of the climate. We're not the healthy alternative. We're just as sick as they are. That's why my stance since I've come out publicly has been, I am not anti-religion. I'm anti-superstition, and you do with that what you will. I'm anti-people jumping to conclusions that they can't support. And not just about the big things, not just about who should be president, not just about what laws should be in effect, but more importantly, for me, and this doesn't have to be for you, but for me, more importantly, how you treat people. If you'd use misinformation to change how you treat people, that's problematic. If you'd mistreat other people based off of a rumor, that's a problem. When I noticed that in this community we were raising up people and encouraging troll-like behavior, let's go troll the Christians. What the fuck are you doing? That's not healthy. That's not sign of any maturity. And that's not somebody that anybody else is going to look at and say, maybe I should become one of them. You know? Yes, it's babyish. And I'm like, no, that's not what's going to help move us forward. That's not what's going to help heal humanity. Sometimes I worry that we've become worse than the believers. Not all of us, not me, not me, but you know what I'm saying. My big point here is that learning styles were treated as educational science before being validated as educational science. There are many things that we're treating as science that hasn't been validated as science. There are many things that we've treated as truth that hasn't been validated as truth. I have really hyperactive dreams. My dreams are so real to me that many times after waking up, I have to take a few seconds to reorient. Like I was asleep the other day and I woke up right as my wife was coming in. I was like, "You brought breakfast?" Because in the dream she had just brought breakfast or something like that. But but that obviously led to me staying in Christianity a lot longer, because I'd have these moments that felt like, well, no, this has to be something supernatural because I dreamed of this and then this happened. Um, so I have this really, really hyper imagination. And at one point, I used to think that my dreams were prophetic. I used to think that my dreams were telling me about other people. And what was really easy about believing that was that my dreams would seem like they were coming true when I would tell when my dreams would tell me something about people, especially those last few years, because I'd start telling people like, "Hey, is this going on? Because I had a dream," and then they'd be like, "How'd you know?" And I'm like, "Dang," you know. But after a while, I realized after deconverting, I realized that like I am highly autistic, highly neurodivergent. Um, been masking pretty much my whole life, hard not life out here. And my brain is like, as most human brains, is an incredible pattern seeking machine. But I am also hyper aware when I'm awake. I'm pretty much paying attention to almost everything around me as much as I can. I'm not omniscient by a long shot. And while I'm not able to process all of it in real time, that stuff is still in my brain. And because I am a hyperactive dreamer, like I sleepwalk at least twice a year, but like because I am this hyperactive dreamer, that information gets kicked up. And what I eventually had to learn how to sit with was that my dreams are not telling me anything about other people. They're telling me something about me. And even I got to be careful with that wording. I like that because it's poetic. I'll continue to say it that way, but I don't think my dreams are actually telling me. They're happening based off of information that's already accessible in my little mind space up here. And it's that information and those patterns that are running together to create the sequences that become my dreams. And it's because it's information from my life and my thoughts, there is a high rate or a high probability of this having some semblance of accuracy because it's things that I am really thinking about in the back of my mind in a place that I can't access when I'm awake. So I had to process all of that, but I say all of that to say I would not have gotten there if I wasn't willing to treat my own feelings, my own intuitions, my own thoughts, to run them through the same process that I'm requiring everything else to go through. It got to be validated, Darante. What could also be true? You know, what could also be true? Um, so yeah. The problem is not that people find love languages useful. People find all kinds of unscientific frameworks useful. Astrology can feel useful. Personality quizzes can feel useful. I love personality quizzes. I think like for the first like leadership training session that Bridge City does, like the first big one where everybody's together, I think we're gonna open it up with a personality quiz because I found one that I really like, and I don't like it for any scientific reasons, like, but not at all. Like, I can't like a personality quiz for scientific reasons. I like it because instead of it giving you like your INSFJ or your, or you're the steward or you're the campaigner, you're the advocate, instead of like instead of bullshit like that, and I'm just gonna call it that now because I'm being tongue in cheek, it gives you like a whole bunch of TV shows and movies, and you can click one and it's gonna tell you which character you are. Now, of course, this isn't based in anything science. It's useful, it's creative, it's fun. But if we were to take that personality quiz and then to market it as science and then tell people like, yes, this is who you are. This is your personality type. That's where it becomes dangerous. So I'm not saying these things can't be useful. No, they can be useful. They can be helpful. They can be fun. They can be creative. The question is not whether a framework gives people language for their experience. The question is whether the framework has demonstrated that it accurately explains what it claims to explain. You know, not too much on Myers-Briggs, right? Yes. And when researchers looked at love language through the lens of relationship science, the results were disappointing. A 2024 review in Current Directions in Psychological Science says empirical work on love language is sparse. That's not good. And does not strongly support the three central claims that each person has a preferred love language, that there are 5 love languages, and that couples are more satisfied when partners speak each other's preferred love language. Now, I just want you to think about it. Like, I'm speaking your language and you speak in my language. That seems like an unnecessarily hard conversation if we can both speak each other's language. See, like the rule of communication, like the whole reason translators exist is to create middle ground. Okay. All right. So what really comes out of this is that the author suggests that a better metaphor is love is less like a single love language and more like a balanced diet requiring many forms of care. And the thing that even as a pastor, I started cautioning people against: nothing is a substitute for verbal communication in a relationship. Nothing. That other stuff can highlight, enhance, build the relationship. Absolutely. But at no point is it healthy for two people who are capable of speaking to each other, to switch to say, well, instead of speaking, I'm just gonna go clean up the kitchen. You know, these are normally red flags. And I got to see firsthand through several churches how many relationships ended up getting destroyed through people thinking about these 5 love languages. Because then what happens when you meet somebody at work who speaks your preferred love language? But that person only speaks your preferred love language because they ain't got to talk to you for real. They just show up with gifts and they get to rub on the booty. I'm gonna say it like that. That's as far as I'm gonna go. No, I'm just playing. But no. This is why love languages belong in the same conversation with learning styles. Both are examples of popular typologies that gave people the feeling of understanding themselves without having to demonstrate that the categories were scientifically valid. And that's really the problem at the end of the day. It's like astrology can give you the feeling of understanding yourself without having to be not have to be demonstrated as valid. But wasn't that the problem with religion? Our problem with religion was religion could give us the feeling of understanding ourselves, but it didn't have anything to demonstrate that it was based on anything valid. So my caution to people, like if we don't like that about religion, why not separate Why not do our best to separate ourselves from doing that about anything? If I'm going to attach something to myself and the way that I view the world, I want to make sure that it is as valid as possible. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that anybody has to become a robot or anything like that. Do things for fun. I am not mad when people have astrology cards. I don't know if there's astrology cards, but when people have like astrology stuff, I'm not mad when people say, "Ooh, what's your sign?" I don't get mad. I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. I don't do that. It doesn't mean anything. Like my sign would not be accurate. I'm a Taurus. According to many people, I act like a Taurus. But I know a lot of Tauruses that I don't act like. I'm also aware of confirmation bias. I'm also aware of the I can't even think of the right way to say it. We're just going to call it the law of big numbers, which some people call the Simpson effect, where you think something predicted something, or you think something successfully predicted something because something happened. You're really just dealing with the law of big numbers, you know? So the fundamental problem with neuromyths, and I'm gonna get ready to wrap up in the next 10 here. Long time watcher. Oh man, nice to see that you can jump in. Yeah, tarot cards. Yeah, I know people who do the tarot card stuff. Like, I don't get mad. Like, I have friends who don't believe in the tarot cards, but they like that stuff to help them process their thoughts, you know? But the fundamental problem with neuromyths is that oversimplified misconceptions about the brain um, directly limit student potential, misallocate educational resources, and let underperforming systems off the hook. Rather than benign trivia, they actively harm learning outcomes by boxing students into rigid categories. Now, remember what I said earlier. I said that the learning styles was being popularized by literature from higher education. It was being supported or cited in 89% of educational research articles, and it itself had not been validated. This is how quickly things that are not true can feel true. This is how quickly things that are not true can have all of the apparatus of truth behind them, which is why it is so important for us to validate. Okay. And no one should be like, if it's true, no one should be offended if we're validating. They should be proud. Oh, you just wait till you see the results. And like, well, what you need to validate for? You don't trust me? The moment you ask that, I damn sure don't. But the reason why I wanted to throw that little tit piece in there, it's not just a bit of harmless information. What do you think happens? Because remember, I told you how that engine works. Remember, I told you about how getting the Bibles in the schools is not about getting the Bibles in the schools, but it's actually just about getting Bibles purchased and increasing sales to make other moves to fund other things. Okay, in the same way, once learning styles starts getting support without being validated, that support doesn't remain in word alone. Eventually, schools start ordering curriculum. They start ordering teaching material. They start ordering small group resources. And then there's money behind this. Soon, Board of Educations start putting budgets behind restructuring things, and all of the things that they're trying based off of the learning styles, none of it validated by science, because that's the people who are leading your fucking school boards in most cases aren't qualified. It's crazy how many important jobs in this country that you don't have to have zero qualifications to do. Here's to you, Congress. Mm-mm. It's frightening. It's frightening. I get scarier. I get more afraid every day. Man. So you end up getting money funneled. And this time, like in this case, learning styles, as far as I know, don't have a religious attachment. There might be a lot of pseudo psychology that does enter the education space does come from religious institutions and organizations. As far as I know, learning styles does not have a attachment to religious history, even though I know it was adopted by religious institutions as well. So in this case, the problem isn't necessarily that the money is going to support some right-wing cause or some Christian cause or some Republican cause. This time, the problem is just that the money is being wasted, period. That's like, no, now I want to pull the report. Now I want to pull the report of how much nationwide American schools, public schools, spent to accommodate learning styles. Because like that's highly problematic. Learning styles and love languages are not the only types of neural myths that we subject ourselves to. The learning styles myths can have detrimental effects on education. Again, for one, people who are hands-on learners can be stereotyped as less intelligent. You know, promoting the idea that people have fixed, and think about that, fixed. Like almost anytime someone is talking to me about other people or about people and using terms like, yeah, you have a type, this is your type. As a sociologist, I'm like, this is your bullshit. Because that's not how our understanding of human personality is not fixed. You know, our understanding of humanity is not fixed. This is a category era of extremes. error. I wonder if anybody catch that movie reference. I'm not going to say what it is. Yes, I am. It's Euro Trip. Scotty doesn't know. Okay, so now I don't want to end this on this isn't all bad news. Now, of course, this is also like, I think all of my content is really just like a reminder to slow down and think. Slow down and think. Error not found. Slow down and think, right? But I do like to try to leave with stuff that's a little more positive. So this is my wrap up here. If there are no learning styles, then what's the truth about learning? Because I know a lot of us were attached to learning styles. I was attached to them at one point, and then I got really confused because then I was like, but wait a minute, I can actually learn through all these ways. I ain't saying I'm Superman or nothing, but I actually think we all can. And in my personal opinion, I think we all can. You know, or the majority at least can. I think everybody who watches TV would qualify as a visual learner. Otherwise, you would not be able to enjoy the experience of watching TV. Everybody who listens to music would qualify as an auditory learner. Everyone who enjoys and listens and enjoys, because you would not be able to enjoy the music if you weren't learning. Like if you remembered the lyrics after you learned the song, you are an auditory learner. If you remember the story after watching the movie, you are a visionary learner. You know, so what is the truth about learning if there are no learning styles? What actually matters in learning if it's not learning styles? Well, see, here's the thing. Just as with religious claims, learning styles had no explanatory power. And that's the problem with many claims of pseudo intelligence, is that they don't explain anything. They don't actually help you with anything. Most times they just give an excuse. And so it answers a why instead of a how. Okay? So what actually matters in learning? Number one, prior knowledge. And this one upsets me that it isn't a bigger conversation in elementary, because it needs to be. It just needs to be a bigger conversation in public education, period. That regardless of class, color, or creed, every child is coming to school with a different baseline of starting information. Everybody is showing up on day one with a different baseline of prior knowledge, and that impacts learning. That impacts learning. Fast forward to middle school, you're a Black kid in European history, reading about it for the first time, looking at Napoleon Bonaparte's name and just be like, what is that? I say Bonaparte. That's what I do. There's an E on the end of my name. There's an E on the end of his name. My name is Darante. His name is Bonaparte. Okay. Now let me stop. But reading about Napoleon Bonaparte and everything that, he had going on, reading about King Louis and all these great folk, I am not going to attach to that information as easily if I come from a household where European history has never been discussed. I come from a household we ain't never watched Braveheart. We weren't watching that. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is not a negative, positive thing. This is a reality that if students are showing up with a different baseline of prior knowledge and the teachers are not aware of that, then I don't know how much of what you are grading is what you taught or what they knew before they got there. And so then students who did not have prior knowledge of the information, who come from backgrounds, they're expected to start at the same level with everybody else. And then it's often oversimplified. Well, it's just a reading issue. Get the fuck out of here. No, I'm sorry, y'all. Replay game. I'll see you, Monica. So prior knowledge. People can learn better when new information connects to what they already understand, which means the job of the educator then, or the facilitator, is to figure out the baseline of prior knowledge for the student and then find a way to connect with that information. Number 2, attention. You cannot learn what you are not mentally engaging, and that's on you. You have to figure that part out. You got to figure out how to focus your attention. You got to figure out what works for you and then communicate it. Practice. Hey, listen. And this is why we wanted the learning styles, because the learning styles lets us avoid all of this hard work. Oh, no. You got to do the hard work. Learning requires retrieval, repetition, application, and correction. Feedback. People need to know what they misunderstood, not just what they consumed. The way that I preferred to learn when I was in school, especially when it came to math and science, I preferred, and I did it. I ain't gonna lie. I'd go to the back of the book and get the answers out of the book, because I knew I was looking at the problem I don't see what they're doing here. And I had a huge problem in math because I intuitively could get the answers, but I don't know why that's the answer. It just looked like that would be the number that would make most sense next, but I couldn't really show my work. And so, but that's what started helping me, is going back and just, instead of me just depending on my intuition, is going back and looking at what is actually the right answer and then working backwards from how they got it. I like to start there. Okay. And then context. The best method depends on the material, not just the learner. So I can learn how to change an alternator kinesthetically better than I could orally, or auditorily. There are certain things Like I can learn how to play a song by sitting down and playing it better than I can by looking at somebody else play it. My eyes just don't. I can look at you play it over and over again, play it until until my fingers touch the keys. I don't know what I'm looking at, you know. But so you don't learn pronunciation the same way you learn geometry. You don't learn emotional regulation the same way you learn algebra. You do not learn public speaking the same way you learn historical dates. The question is not what kind of learner am I? The better question is, what does this task require of my brain, my body, my memory, my attention, and my environment at this moment? Because you, and this is what I used to tell my team when I was in corporate, you are not a skeleton. You're neural. You are not set in stone. You are adaptive. You are flexible. You are changing. You are growing. You are transformative, evolutionary. That's who you are. And so different environments, different information, different context will require different parts of you. I think one of my biggest fear about a lot of these neuro myths, and that's what we'll call them. You are ascending, yes. A lot of these like neuro myths is that it traps you into just like, I hate to use this, well, it's accurate, one-dimensional existence, where this is who I am, this is who I'll always be. And I'm like, no, life is so much richer than that. And you are so much more than that. Science should teach us science should expand our box, not box us in. And so my radar is always like going off when I see, I think this is probably boxing us in more than it's helping us expand, you know? And you're too big. You're just too big to be boxed in. Why would you want that? You're too great. You're too grand. We don't live in that world anymore where everybody just picks one thing and becomes that. That was it. That was, acceptable at a time. As it was recommended at one time. Hey, if you're going to be a hunter, you're going to have to be a hunter now. You're going to be a hunter and a gatherer. Like, where do they do that at? Like, how are we ever going to get any work done? Right? But we have since then given ourselves the gift of time. And so it's like, nah, some people hunt, some people gather. Little Billy over there, he just like to twirl and stuff like that. So, but there's been a market for it. So we going. We've given ourselves the gift of time. Don't you use that gift of time to treat yourself like you still trapped in the Stone Ages. And that was like a sad thing for me coming out of Christianity. Is realizing like, oh, dude, you're living like damn near 2,500 years of history never happened. You out here like, I wonder how this happened. I wonder how this happened. I wonder how this worked. And all of these questions got answers. And you just acted like everything is just so mysterious because you've been trapped in this bubble of misinformation. And I want you to resist misinformation, not just because it's not true. I want you to resist misinformation because it's robbing you of the opportunity to be the best you that you can be. And that's what I need at the end of the world. Like for me to achieve my goals, I need more people who are showing up to be their fullest selves. That's like when I die, that's what will give me peace. As if I know that, hey, dude, your work led to more people living as their fullest selves, then I'll say good. All right. So, I think that's all I have. Like, I got so much more that I want to say, but the big point is like, just don't let anybody else define you. Don't accept information that hasn't been validated. Don't be very careful about passing information that hasn't been validated. Be very careful about making judgments of other people that you haven't validated, you know? Is in the echo chamber parroting it. But again, you verify it. You don't believe something just because you hear it. Like that, see, that's the problem. The question was, y'all, how does someone identify misinformation when everyone around them is in the echo chamber parroting it? You verify the information. Like, I think that's the problem that we've created with society. Things are true because people say them. And I'm like, no. Like, no, things are true because they're in a book. No. Things are true because someone wrote it down. No. Things are true because they were tested and they stood. And so you got to test it. You take advantage of the time. You take advantage of the time. Oh, man. Carrie Ann, it's so good to see you in here. It's so good to see you in here. Before you buy, verify. That's it. Even when it's something you really want to believe, right? Even when it's something that really feels true. Even when it's something that feels like intuitive. You know? There's a lot of stuff that people share and I see it and I'm like, man, I wish that was true. But because I know the world that I live in, and let me fact check this real quick before I share it. And I'm really like that. I'm kind of strong on my kung fu is strong there. I try my best not to share bullshit. I try my best because it's just too easy to do. None of us are really above it. If you saw a post right now about Donald Trump and it said that he did something stupid, you would most likely just share the post. And you're like, look here, he doing stupid shit again. Without verifying it, whether this particular stupid shit is something that he actually did. But me, I have to sit with the larger nuance of, is this true? Is this valid? What cause would I be helping by spreading it? In a simple world, you think that spreading somebody else's stupidity would make them less relevant. But if you know anything about the United States of America, spreading somebody's stupidity is exactly how to keep them relevant. We have a show called Jackass. Jackass? I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. You know? So no, thank y'all so much for participating in today's conversation. I love y'all so much. Of course, join us Sunday. We're starting a new conversation series this Sunday called, what is it called, y'all? What is it called? Headcanon. Headcanon starts this Sunday. This is my story. We're talking about reclaiming our narratives. That meeting was only, what? We're talking about reclaiming our narratives and all that good jazz. If you're not on the global campus, get there. We have some exciting things rolling out there, and we're still building our leadership team. So there's some room for you. And I also now, I've been doing that. I've been doing this locally, but I'm now expanding publicly. I'll be offering humanist services for anyone who is in need. So whether you need someone to perform a wedding, a funeral, someone to do some coaching, some consulting, someone to do some consulting on community work, maybe you're building a community somewhere and you need some help with that. I'm going to be offering my services, which I'll be sharing that information soon. Yay. But that's also in partnership with what I opened up this today's session about, which is Bridge City Global's Council for Applied Humanism, where we're going to be working to build a professional framework for humanist practitioners. All right. So again, thank y'all for being here. I love y'all. Make sure you share this stream. All right. Sharing is caring. That's the only way other people know that we got the goodness over here. So please share this stream. If you haven't, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. And until next time, as always, keep rising.
habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We can make it over anything when we focus on our liberty. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We can make it over anything when we focus on our liberty. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno, jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We are rising into victory, celebrating our humanity. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Yeah, we are rising into victory, celebrating our humanity. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. You say. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. You say. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We can make it over anything when we focus on our liberty. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free.